the story of the year. Very little inventory, very high demand, is a record, like historic low, which is wild. 2 months, not 0.2, but 2 months competition going on throughout the United States as a whole. Hi, this is Bella. Today I'm going to be going over the newest market update. We just got our release of the market update from March. We normally get these in the first week or two into the new month for the following month. And it's really nice because it's really comprehensive as to, how many homes sold and all these other things. And with the market as crazy as it is right now, it is a great time to dive into everything and go over it all. So I'm going to be talking specifically on the Seattle market and the Eastside market, but I'm also going to touch on some tidbits of the United States market as a whole and what housing is looking like everywhere. Let's start off with the Eastside, which is, if you're from the general area, you have Seattle, and then the Eastside is more like Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland, Bothell, a couple other places as well, and dive into those numbers first because they're a little bit more extreme. Then we'll talk about Seattle and Seattle residential versus condo, because a big difference in that right now, more so I think than normal. And then we're also gonna go over a little bit of the housing market everywhere in the United States. So that is fun if you're not from the area or thinking about buying in this general area. So the East Side. The March statistics represent the story of the year. Very little inventory and very high demand, resulting in multiple offers on 76% of homes sold. The properties that sold over list price did so by a median of 13%. And then just so you're aware, that median 13%, kind of what that looks like in our market, is $175,500. So that is what 13% over list price looks like in our market, since the median sold home price is $1,350,000. And like I talked about before, some homes are going a lot over that 13%. So I've seen 20 and 30% over list price. There are some homes that aren't going as high over, or maybe being sold at list price if they list a little bit aggressively. So that's how that 13% comes in. Virtually every statistic on the East Side for the month of March is a record, historic low, which is wild. And I've been going over all these, just this is crazy. So just to throw some numbers your way so you get a little bit better idea as to what I'm talking about. On March 31st, 2021, we had 216 houses for sale, which is the lowest number of homes for sale at the end of the month of March we have ever seen. So again, that was 216 homes for sale the last day of March. To give some background, the previous low for the end of March was in 2018, and the low was 577. Obviously, there is a big discrepancy between 216 and 577. That's a big gap. Not to mention that, but it's also the second lowest month on history ever, which is crazy. Normally, the spring market, it's picking back up. So March is a crazy month for that low to happen on. And the lowest month ever was at the end of December 2020, when there was 188 homes. Let's talk about inventory. So before I talked about, last month we were at 0.4 months of inventory, which was crazy. And so for those of you who don't know, the 0.4 months would mean if no homes were listed on the market between now when there was 0.4 months to, just under 2 weeks from then, which would be 0.4 of a month, there would be no homes on the market to buy. So that's what that number means. And before, we were at a record low in February of 2021 at 0.4. And just so you have an idea as to how low 0.4 is, the previous record before February 2021 of 0.4 was in March of 2018 at 0.7. So clearly, 0.4 is quite a bit lower than 0.7, and if that's the second lowest ever, that's kind of wild. So now we have reached another historic low number in March of 2021, and that is 0.2 months of inventory. 0.2. It's absolutely insane. And then what couples very, nicely with that extremely low inventory is an increase in sales price. So the median closed sales price of $1,350,000 in March of 2021 is a record high, as is the 30% increase in sales price over the previous year. Then again, another record is that 76% of properties sold ended up selling for over list price. 76%. Then another record, housing selling above list price by a median of 13% like we talked about earlier. That is another record. And then again for another one, 88% of the houses that sold had less than 15 days on the market. Lastly, I want to note that pending and closed sales counts are higher than the 10-year average. However, that is not a record, but still a good point to note. Now I want to touch a little bit on buyers and sellers in this market in 2021 as a whole thus far. So potential buyers that have been looking to buy since the first of the year have seen a 10 to 25% increase in values of homes depending on the market. And then a lot of buyers have lost hope, seeing that, homes they put offers in on have gone tens of thousands, if not hundreds of $1,000s over ask price, which has made a lot of buyers weary and have stepped down from wanting to buy. However, even though that is happening to some buyers, the buyer demand is still absolutely insane, which has, accounted for the market as it is. So if you are wanting to buy a home and, this person is wanting to sell a home and you guys both start looking to buy or figuring out selling in January, it will take the seller a lot longer to get their house ready to list than it will take the buyer to find their perfect home. So with that said, a lot of people who were saying, okay, come January 1st, they're like, let's get our house ready to sell. They may not be on the market yet. And so that's hopefully something that we're going to be seeing in the coming months, which will help, lower competition a little bit, hopefully, and hopefully raise inventory a bit. And so that has been on the market on the east side. So obviously things are so hectic and the 0.2 months of inventory is just absolutely mind-boggling to me. I did want to note that that is for residential sales. But with that, I want to touch really quickly on condominium sales on the east side and what that inventory looks like. It's still pretty comparable to the rest of the east side market report that I just went over with you. However, inventory for condominiums on the east side is at 0.5 months of inventory. So there's a little bit more there, but at the same time, 0.5 months of inventory is still crazy low. And with that, there's less homes that are selling above list price as there are residentially. So condominiums in March 2021, 49% of them sold above list price. So obviously there's still a lot of competition there. Condos are still getting bid up, but at a little bit less of a degree than residential homes on the east side. All right, so enough of the east side. Let's dive into the Seattle market update for March. So Seattle has been a bit different than the east side. It has been a little bit less competitive, especially we're seeing that in condominiums. But first, we're gonna touch on residential sales. Seattle residential in March has 0.5 months of inventory available, so a little bit more than we were seeing in residential homes on the east side. Similarly, 51% of their homes sold above list price. The Seattle residential market is seeing seasonally high amount of new listings seen in the month, actually 27% more than the previous year. So just to throw some numbers out there so that 27% makes a little bit more sense, in March of 2020, there was 895 new residential listings in Seattle, whereas in March of 2021, there were 1,134 new residential listings. And similarly, there were way more pending transactions in March of 2021 than March of 2020. So it's just that buyer demand, the people that are there wanting to buy, which is also why inventory is so low. So yes, there's been a lot more new listings than there was in 2020, but buyer demand is there, which is what is keeping the inventory so low and causing that 51% of homes to go above list price. Now, something that is also interesting is condos in Seattle. So this ranges a little bit if you're looking at other areas such as like Fremont and Queen Anne compared to like Belltown and more of like the downtown Seattle. So in Belltown and downtown, which is what we call Area 701, they're at 2 months of inventory. Which, I mean, okay, so we're talking 0.2 months on residential east side and then 2 months, not 0.2, but 2 months for condos in downtown Seattle. And that number has actually gone down a little bit from the months prior. So in January of 2021, we're looking at 2.5 months of inventory. And then in February 2021, we're looking at 3 months. And now in March, we're looking at 2 months. Now, this inventory level for this area of Seattle isn't super surprising, as years prior it was a bit higher. It has definitely been lower. There's normally just a little bit more inventory there than we see in other places. However, in March, 32% of condos did sell above list price. So there is definitely still some competition there. less than we're seeing in other places, but it's still there. Now for Seattle condominiums as a whole, just throughout Seattle, so no specified area, we're looking at 1.4 months of inventory. So there's definitely less inventory of condos throughout Seattle as there is in just the concentrated downtown area. And again, with that, 23% of condos in Seattle as a whole sold above list price in March of 2021. So clearly throughout, you know, the east side and Seattle, we're seeing that it is a seller's market, and it really does differentiate as to like where you're looking to buy. In the east side, it is just a lot more competitive right now. However, there is still competition going on in Seattle and competition going on throughout the United States as a whole. I did a little bit of research. Obviously, I don't have as good of intel as to, you know, what's going on in all of, you know, the United States as a whole, since I do get very in-depth market details for the east side and Seattle. The US as a whole, what I learned in my little search was that in March of 2021, the median home list price reached an all-time high. And so this all-time high median home list price was $370,000, which was up 15.6% compared to last year. So obviously that is a big jump, and you know, with such a big jump in median home list price, obviously seeing the demand from buyers that they're looking to buy. And it's not just, I mean, it might be a little bit crazier on the east side than, you know, where you are, or maybe you're living somewhere that is a lot crazier than what we're seeing. I mean, the US as a whole, it's a seller's market, and people are getting top dollar for their homes, for their condos, and buyers are having a hard time to get in, whether they are a first-time buyer, a millennial, you know, they have a couple homes, investment properties, whatever it is, buyers are having trouble getting in. And a lot of this I talked about before, like waive contingencies, all cash, and go way over list price, and you still might not get it. But those are things that will make your offer stronger. And I will do a video that goes over how to write up a winning offer and what to include in an offer to have the best shot possible to win in a seller's market. And obviously there's no one size fits all, and you're never gonna find, you know, the perfect recipe of things, as it is all situational. However, there are things that you should be doing if you are wanting to get your offer accepted and to present the strongest offer that you possibly can to your sellers. And that's just how it is, and it's the best of luck for everybody. And let's hope that the other person putting a bid on the same house as you does not, you know, have the ability to go 30% over list price if that is something that you're not willing to do. So that is the Eastside Seattle US market report for the month of March. Now that we have that information in, please comment below with any questions you might have on the market. I'll also have my email below if you have any more specific questions for, you know, Seattle or the east side, whether it's, you know, inventory, looking for places, or, you know, whatnot, or if you're a buyer or a seller. I work with both, and I have a lot of tips I could give you in relation to those. Like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.